Hi, this is Margie Basso with Eastlink TV, and we're here once again with talking with Luke about wine. And today's subject is going to be decanting. So welcome, Luke. I'm looking really forward to the subject today. I know there's a lot of information to go over, and we're going to try and be succinct as possible. I'd like to just, we had a brief conversation ahead of time, and you said there's 3 things that you need to know about decanting. So let's talk about the first one.
There's 3 reasons for decanting wine. A lot of people don't know, sort of understand why you'd want to decant a wine. Basically, the first thing is to basically aerate a wine. When you aerate a wine, you're adding oxygen to the wine, and you're bringing out the aromas of a younger wine, especially wines that are under 5 years of age. You'd want to be able to, bring out a little bit more of the aromas there. Sometimes when you just pop the cork, you think that just leave the bottle there, you think that the wine is breathing. It's not. It really isn't doing anything with that. So to do that, you'd basically want to decant a wine, and that's very simply just pouring the wine out of the bottle into something else, and then you can pour it back into the bottle if you like, or leave it in whatever it is that you happen to be pouring it into, like a decanter.
I know that some of the things that I had researched on and looked up, and it said you could make the analogy of getting up in the morning, that usually it takes you a little bit to get your system going, your bones you're feeling more awake and alive, and that's exactly what you're doing with the wine. Do you agree?
Yeah, exactly. That would be it. It's just kind of waking up the wine. Now, that's one reason to do it. Another reason is that you have an old wine, right? You've got a wine that you've been aging in your cellar for 10 years, 25 years, however long, and when you age a wine, there'll be sediment in the bottom of the bottle, and you don't want to drink the sediment. You want to be able to pour that off. So what you're doing when you're decanting is you're trying to pour off the clear liquid on the top, basically. So with that one, that's a little bit more specialized. You need a candle. That's why I have the candle here. That would be the kind of the reason for using an older wine. The third reason is that really it's just presentation. Decanters look cool. There's some really, really interesting ones here, especially this guy over here. But it makes a table setting that much more interesting than just having a bottle.
So let's go back to the first reason, which is to let your wine breathe. And of course, then it also sort of allows it or lends itself to looking at the shape of a decanter. And I know that I was having a conversation with somebody here at Tinhorn Creek. That's where we're hosting today, Tinhorn Creek Winery. And she was mentioning that often the larger decanters, such as the one that's over here, maybe you can grab that one, there's a reason why it has this portion at the bottom, or that it's lifted, and that's supposed to do what?
The bottom part, this is on a bottle of wine, we call this the punt, and effectively it just makes it easier to hold. The real feature with this decanter is that it has a very, very wide surface area, so that when you pour a bottle of wine in, it will only come up to the widest part here, and that means that there's a huge amount of surface area of air contacting the wine, and that's good. You want that. You want it to be able to aerate. So for something like a Pinot Noir or a Syrah, this would be absolutely perfect for aerating that, and aerating it fairly quickly as well. Also, when you pour the wine, it makes it a little easier to hold when it's on its side.
It actually is a very aesthetically pleasing decanter, as are the others. But if you were shopping for a decanter and then you wanted to look for functional purposes, obviously a wide base is one of them. So if we were referring to this one, now this one obviously is a little bit smaller. So if you're not planning on decanting a whole bottle of wine, this would be appropriate as opposed to using a large one.
This actually holds an entire bottle of wine. This is actually my decanter that I use for sort of everything. Effectively, it is a very, when you're pouring it in, it's got a nice wide circle on the top. It allows a lot of wine to stream in, and the full bottle of wine will actually come out to about here. So it doesn't really, it's not as constricting as what it seems like it should be, but it's actually really very good for decanting a whole lot of different things. Some companies will actually have different decanters for different varieties of wine. So if you've got a Pinot Noir, you'd want to use a different decanter than if you were decanting a Cabernet Sauvignon. It gets a little bit extreme sometimes with how you'd think that they sort of want you to buy a whole bunch of different things just to have a whole army of decanters, but you really don't need that. You just need to have something that's really, basically what you like, and you were attracted to one of these ones over here and you really like that style, get that style.
And I think it's important to have a little bit of information or knowledge before you shop for a decanter. Obviously, some of them can be fairly expensive. I know I received one, and it's a beautiful piece of glassware. Unfortunately, it goes all the way around, and it has a hole in the center. Yeah. And so not one that I would particularly use very often. It's very difficult to clean. And then again, I would think, based on your comments, that it wouldn't have a lot of area for oxygenating the wine. Would I be correct in that?
Yeah, you would be correct. It's also how you pour the wine as well that will allow it to be to be aerated more. When I use this decanter, I will pour the wine down the side, and it will kind of dribble all the way down here. So it's actually mixing pretty well. You can also get little accessories to go with it. So an accessory like this, for instance, this actually automatically, it's curved, so it'll shoot the wine down on the side. So any decanter that you have, I can just pour it straight on like that, and it will then blast the wine down the side, aerating it even more than that. So that's what a funnel like this would be for. You can get other ones that do similar things. There's some that go straight down the middle and it splashes out on all sides. There's all kinds of little gadgets and stuff. So if you like gadgets, wine is a good industry to get in.
I think it's a very good industry to get in. Just coming to here at Tin Horn this morning, we found all kinds of really neat knickknacks that you could get for your wine enthusiasts, friends, and family. Now, two things I want to touch base with then for decanting. You mentioned a little bit with pouring, and we've talked about the various styles of decanter that you could look at. Now, let's talk about sediment, because we do have some products here that you could use to assist you with the sediment. One of them in particular that I saw when I was looking online, a lot of people traditionally, I would think, would have used a candle. So let's talk about the candle first, and then we can go to some of these other filter methods.
Sure. The candle is really just a light source, and it's an easy light source. It's not too hard on the eyes. What you want to do when you light the candle is basically you want to put the candle on the other side of the bottle from where you are. So what I would do we have a bottle here? I can use this bottle here. Basically what I would do for this, I would light the candle, hold the bottle so that I can see the candle through the neck right here, and then I would pour through there, and I would be looking through at the candle through the wine for the entire time that I'm pouring. As soon as I start to see sediment or anything kind of trail through that candle, that's when I stop. And so that basically gives me a really clear view of the sediment coming out, and as soon as there's a little sediment, off it goes. So you're going to lose a little bit of wine. There's going to be probably usually about 3/4 of an inch of wine, or 2 centimeters of wine in the bottom of the bottle, but it's going to be full of sediment, and so you wouldn't want to drink that anyways. Most of all the good wine is going to be in your decanter.
And I think that's why, like you notice here at Tin Horn today, how they have the wine stored horizontally. We had made reference to this earlier, is that before you even decided to decant, you would probably have it standing upright so that the sediment was going down. Maybe just elaborate on that.
Yeah, when your bottles are stored on their side, you get sediment right along the bottom. And effectively, if it's stored properly, the bottle won't have moved for a long time, so all that sediment will be there. When you are decanting, you're going to want to plan that so that a couple days in advance, you might want to have the bottle moved slightly so that it's kind of on an angle like that. And if you get a really decanted bottle at a very fine restaurant, they actually have special racks that they will bring in. If you order a bottle of wine that needs decanting, for instance, that's very old, they will actually bring it in on a tilted trolley, and they will keep the bottle absolutely stable as possible because they don't want the sediment to get mixed back in. Then what happens from there, if you need to and you don't have the option of holding it on its side, stand it up very, very gently and just leave it. Let it settle. That sediment won't fall back into the wine. It'll still cling to the side of the glass, and it will gently fall down to the bottom a little bit. When you pour it, then it's important to keep that sediment on the bottom so that as you're pouring it, it doesn't come up. It doesn't come back into the wine because then it'll be really hard to decant at that point.
So with the candle method, then I think that's something that's been traditionally used.
Yes.
And now, of course, we have, I don't want to say lazy man's version, or maybe I want to say that it's just an easier version if you didn't want to be as fiddly with a candle and making sure that you've tilted and everything else. We do have some easier, probably more user-friendly products that have come out since then, and maybe we can highlight a couple of those today.
There's a couple little gadgets. One is the Nuance Wine Finer, which is this thing right here. And effectively, it is a screen. It's not a filter. It's really just a bit of what we call a fining screen. This does 4 things. It goes into the bottle. It just drops straight down in there, and it looks like a pouring spout. And effectively, what it does is the screens will trap any of the sediment that is going to be in the bottle. It'll keep it from coming out of the bottle. Also is a very decorative pouring spout. It's dripless, and it also has a stopper that's airtight as well. So you can actually put this in the bottle and leave it for a day or so if you don't drink the whole bottle all at once, which, though a foreign concept to some people, not everyone drinks everything all at the same time. So that's one product that works pretty well for that kind of thing. The other thing is what we call an aerator. And this is the decantus aerator, and effectively what it does is there's a screen on the top, so you basically pour the wine straight through. Now the benefit with this is that you don't actually have to decant an entire bottle. You can just decant one glass at a time, so you don't actually need to, again, for those people who's it's a foreign concept to not drink an entire bottle, you can just go glass by glass with this. This will trap any of the sediment. The wine comes down here, and then there's little air holes here. And basically, as it goes through this little cone, it will actually add bubbles to the wine. So it basically adds oxygen as it's falling through there. There's a physics term for that. I can't remember now what that is. But basically, it sounds like it's the same kind of process that your kitchen faucet has when it aerates the water coming out. It's basically an aerator of the same style. But then you can just do it glass by glass. So very, very interesting, and it's a beautiful thing to have on your bar top or table, and great fun at parties.
Yeah, very functional. And actually, for the decanter that you brought, your own personal one, you probably most likely could even use this one. Am I correct? Would it fit
Yeah, you
under
can
there?
actually decant. If you have a wine that's really rough and really young and lots of tannins, and you want to be able to drink it a little more quickly than, well, not drink it quickly, but serve it in a less amount of time than you otherwise would have prepared, you can decant it straight into a decanter as well. You're going to get the double benefits of the aeration from the aerator. You're going to get the filtering, or not filtering, sorry, screening, and then you'll get the aeration benefit from the decanter, especially if you hold it on the side as you pour it. It's something that's again kind of fun. It actually has a neat sound when you're pouring it through as well. So there's some showbiz benefits to that kind of decanter as well.
Yeah, actually a very beautiful piece, and again, available here at one of our wineries for sure, and that's at Tinhorn Creek Winery. Now, also when we're talking about decanting, we mentioned the time that you would need to let your wine sit before you decide to decant, whether it was a young wine as opposed to an old wine, and just elaborate on that.
Younger wines will need a little bit of time. Basically, if you have a younger wine like a Merlot or a Cabernet Sauvignon, a really heavy style of red wine, you want to decant that earlier, especially if it's only about 3 years old, 3 or 5 to 5 years old. You don't want to pop it open and then serve it right away at dinner. It's just going to be too rough. You won't find that. A lot of people sometimes will taste the wine in the wine shop, and then they'll go home and then they'll taste their wine that they purchased, and they're like, oh, it doesn't taste like what I tasted at the wine shop. It's because the wines at the wine shop are typically, when you taste them, they're aerated a little bit more, and they're open and a little more accessible. When you get a wine at home and you open up your bottle, if you don't allow it to have that oxygen early on, they can be very, very tight, very grippy. They don't taste the same. They don't taste as full, that kind of thing. So with an aerator will basically do that for you. You'd want to be able to aerate it. The younger the wine, the longer you want to decant it. So for a really young, tight Cabernet Sauvignon, for instance, and you're planning on having dinner, open it up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and let it sit in a decanter for 4 hours.
Very good to know, and I think obviously something that you shouldn't underestimate, decanting and the taste of the wine. Then, especially like you said, if you've been at a winery, you've tasted something, you really like it, you get it home, and then you recognize that it doesn't taste the same, that it's probably nothing to do with the wine, it's the way that you've allowed it to breathe and to decant.
That's right. And it's not just, I should say, it's not just red wines that benefit from decanting either. It's actually white wines as well. You can actually, they will open up the same way. Okay. Yeah, so you don't be afraid of decanting white wine either.
Excellent. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, and then we're going to watch you actually decant a bottle of wine, is just the cleaning of decanters, because I came across that as well. And it goes back to the design of the decanter that you decide to purchase, such as the one that actually was gifted to me. And it's a beautiful piece of glassware, but again, without the proper, and I just came across, these are an incredible thing that I think everybody should own if you're looking at decanting wine. And perhaps you can talk about some of the ways that you should be cleaning your decanter.
Yeah, the decanter that you pointed out originally that you seem to like is actually one of the hardest ones to clean, unfortunately. There's a few things, little gadgets. There's brushes and things that you can turn to kind of get in there. For the really tough stuff, though, they have these decanter cleaning bowls, and basically they're ball bearings, and all you need is a little bit of water. Put a little bit of water in the bottom. pour these things in and then swirl it around. These are non-abrasive, but they will basically roll between with their own weight. They'll roll between all of the sediment or anything that's trapped on the glass, and they will clean it out. It's great for mason jars too, by the way, and any kind of glass, basically. It's very, very gentle. There's not going to be any scratches or anything like that. When you are pouring out the water, don't pour these down the drain, because it's really easy for them. I've had a few people who've bought some of these and then come back and bought another one because they've accidentally poured them down the drain. So pour it through a sieve or pour it through something that will trap it, because their drains, I'm sure, are very clean right now after that. But basically, great way to clean a decanter.
These are decanter cleaning balls, and I'm sure available at many wineries, but particular here at Tin Horn Creek Winery. Now, the other thing that I came across also, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you've heard the same thing, because there's all kinds of opinions out there with regards to wine and decanting. Cleaning, I came across, they said you should use cold water inside the decanter and then hot water outside.
Haven't heard that. I wouldn't use both of them one after the other very quickly, because then you can run the chance of cracking the glass, and crystal is just like glass, where it'll react to different temperatures very quickly. The best thing to do is not to use soap. You really don't want to use soap when you're cleaning, so just water. Water power is the best, and just don't use soap, or if you do have to use soap, rinse it for 5 minutes afterwards. Like really, really give it a good rinse. You don't want to leave residue from the soap, and it will leave residue from the soap inside a decanter very easily, and you'll find that your next wine tastes kind of different than you remember, or that it would be a little bit soapier. It'll have kind of a soapy aroma, and that's not what you want in wine.
No, very good to know. And like I said, again, depending on what you choose, and now that you have a little bit more information, you may be a little bit more particular on what you're looking for a decanter, just in comparison to how much sort of maintenance that you want, or how much fiddling around you want to do with the cleaning of it, because the cleaning aspect is very important as well. So let's have you now decant a bottle of wine, and you can take us through the steps. Are you good with that?
Sure.
Okay, let's go.
All right. So we'll decant. Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
We'll decant this bottle of Tin Horn Creek Merlot 2012. I'll use a decanter, not a glass. So if this bottle was full, it would be up to here. And what I would do effectively, just light the candle, and I would put the candle between myself and then I would just watch. And you want to pour slowly. So you see how the wine is kind of dribbling down the side of the glass, and that's exactly how you want it to do. You want it to open up and basically just get as much oxygen as you can. It's not a fast process. You don't want to go fast. You want it to be nice and slow, and as soon as the sediment starts, there's no sediment really, but I'll just pretend there is. Then there's a little bit of wine in the glass, or in the bottle with all the sediment there, and then the wine is lovely and ready to present at your table.
Wonderful. And then you said that if you decant that there is some remaining wine left over, and not usually in your circumstance, but maybe with others, that you could pour it back into the wine bottle again?
Yeah, if you want to do a return, that's basically a technique that if you do want to keep the wine in the bottle instead of having a decanter, or say you have a decanter that isn't really that presentable, and you don't even need to use a decanter, you can pour it into a mixing bowl or something. I mean, honestly, any other vessel that will hold it is really not a big deal. If you pour it back in, what I would do is I would take this out, I would just put a little bit of water there, rinse out the sediments, shake out the water as best as I can, and then pour the wine back into the bottle, and then use that to serve. That will get the benefits of the decanting, but with the presentation in the bottle.
Now, you mentioned here with this wine showcased here from Tin Horn Creek that there is really no sediment. Is it quite often then that you'll have wines that won't really have any sediment that you need to worry about?
A lot of wines that are filtered pretty heavily won't have sediment. This doesn't have any sediment because it's only in 2011, so it hasn't thrown the sediment yet. If this bottle was 10 years old, I would predict that, yes, there would be a little bit of sediment in this bottle. It really just depends on the style of wine. For any wines that are going to be over a certain price point, usually about $20, $25 in BC anyways, they will typically start to throw a sediment after about 4 or 5 years. Any really high-end bottles, so if you're talking, very expensive Bordeaux's, anything from the Rhone Valley, Cabernets from California, that kind of thing, they will throw sediment. And port, actually, port is notorious, especially vintage port. That has a sediment, and you really cannot drink vintage port without decanting it because there's going to be a huge amount of sediment on there. Basically, you'd want to make sure that the wine you're drinking is clear, and the older the wine, typically, the more sediment there will be.
Luke, thank you so much for touching base with us again today. And this is Margie Basso with Eastlink TV talking with Luke about wine. And now you know quite a bit about decanting, so thank you so much.
You're very welcome.